What's up, people? I'm Tangy Nacho, and as you can probably guess by the title of this video, today I'm going to be talking about the recent controversy that's been going on between Blizzard Entertainment and the Hong Kong protests. Specifically, I'll be arguing for the seemingly unpopular opinion that Blizzard has done nothing wrong. What I mean by this is, through their actions over the course of the past few weeks, Blizzard has not shown any bias regarding the situation in Hong Kong, but rather has shown only attempts to remain neutral. If you don't know a lot about the controversy at hand, don't worry because I'll be doing my best to break it down for you guys, presenting the arguments against Blizzard and debunking them. By arguments against Blizzard, I mean the belief of many people in the community, including some of my close friends, that Blizzard has shown bias toward China and against the liberation of Hong Kong. These are the beliefs that I disagree with and hope to present an argument against in order to help bring together a currently fractured community. Before we jump into this, I want to make a few things very clear to you guys. First of all, I fully expect that if this video gets any traffic at all, there will be many comments arguing for either side. I welcome any and all comments, but please do me the favor of watching the entire video before commenting below and before dropping a downvote because you hate Blizzard and now hate me too. If you don't want to sit through the whole thing, I'll even put a written transcript of everything I'm about to say in the description or a pinned comment. I will not reply to any comments that clearly show the poster did not listen to or read my argument in its entirety. If, by the end of the video, you still disagree with me, please do let me know why in the comments. But even more so, if I do happen to change your mind on the matter, I would love to hear about that in the comments as well. And be kind to each other when replying to comments. We are all here because we care about the issue and Blizzard as a company. Which brings me to the second thing I want to make clear, the fact that this video is in no way expressing my support for China against Hong Kong. On the contrary, I fully support Hong Kong and its endeavors toward liberation. I am on the side of freedom and democracy. This video is only arguing the position of Blizzard Entertainment on the matter and whether or not their actions have shown bias in either direction in regards to the Hong Kong protests. Lastly, be aware that this video is being written and recorded on October 18th, 2019. Who knows when my ass will get it uploaded, but hopefully it isn't much later than that. If anything happens after this video is uploaded that shows legitimate bias on Blizzard's part, it has no effect on my argument that, as of said upload date, Blizzard has shown no bias. My argument will always stand that as of October 18th, 2019, Blizzard has shown no bias for or against the Hong Kong protests. And since that is the case, at this time I personally have no qualms with the company or reservations about playing any of their games. You are perfectly entitled to feel differently, but I hope that after listening to what I have to say, you might reconsider your feelings. Should information come out in the future, or information be presented to me that I neglected to find in my research, revealing bias on Blizzard's behalf against the liberation of Hong Kong, I will absolutely boycott their products and post another video explaining why my feelings have changed. That being said, if you find any information that I missed that proves undeniably that Blizzard is biased against Hong Kong, please do present it in the comments below. But please also make sure that your information does, in fact, actually show legitimate proof of bias. I'll be explaining how one shows legitimate proof of bias in a little bit. Apologies for the incredibly long disclaimer intro, but now, without further ado, let's jump into this. So this whole controversy began at the Asia Pacific Grandmasters Tournament for Hearthstone, a game developed by Blizzard Entertainment. In a post-match interview, Hong Kong player Blitzchung appeared wearing a mask resembling the ones that have come to represent the protesters in Hong Kong. Blitzchung pulled down his mask and shouted what translates to, "Liberate Hong Kong, revolution of our age." I cannot personally confirm this translation as I do not speak the language, but many reputable translators have produced this same quote. Take a look at the clip for yourself.
头先低下。
光复香港时代革命。
导播可以切回来了。好，导播谢谢。
Following this interview, Blizzard issued the following statement. While we stand by one's right to express individual thoughts and opinions, players and other participants who elect to participate in our esports competition must abide by the official competition rules. They then cited a rule which states that, engaging in any act that, in Blizzard's sole discretion, brings you into public disrepute, offends a portion or group of the public, or otherwise damages Blizzard image will result in removal from Grandmasters and reduction of the player's prize total to $0 USD, in addition to other remedies which may be provided for under the handbook and Blizzard's website terms. Based on this rule, Blizzard revoked Blitzchung's prize money and banned him from participating in tournaments for 1 year. They also fired the 2 casters that were said to have not only allowed this statement to be made, but encouraged it. This was the initial event that sparked the Blizzard Hong Kong controversy. My initial reaction to this news was that the punishment seemed a bit harsh, but at the end of the day, Blizzard has the right to punish their players how they see fit. This is the first time they have encountered a situation like this, so there was really no precedent to go off of. The community had a slightly different reaction though. Many community members argued that Blizzard's punishment of Blitzchung and the casters showed bias on the company's behalf against the Hong Kong protest. This is a fundamentally flawed argument. Let's look at the facts. Fact 1. Blizzard has rules in place against their official streams being used to make political statements or statements that, in their sole discretion, may offend a group of individuals. Regardless of whether you think this is a good rule or not, that is not your choice to make. You are not the CEO of Blizzard Entertainment. And I would argue that this is actually a perfectly reasonable rule. Blizzard does not want their streams or events to be used for anything but gaming. They do not want their players or casters making political statements on stream because that reflects back on the company itself. Blizzard wants to remain neutral on the matter of the Hong Kong protests. We can assume this because we currently have no evidence to the contrary. Innocent until proven guilty. Therefore, any political statement made on either side of the issue is a punishable offense. And of course it is up to Blizzard's sole discretion because who else's discretion would it be up to? It's a Blizzard game and it's a Blizzard event. They can moderate it however they wish. Fact 2. Blitzchung made a statement with political implication that could feasibly offend some people that may be watching the stream. He also made this statement knowing full well that he was breaking Blizzard rules. After receiving his punishment, Blitzchung stated, "I knew I might have penalty or consequence for my act because I understand that my act could take the conversation away from the purpose of the event." Whether or not he knew about the rule, he still broke it. He signed a contract which included the rule and then broke that rule, justifying punishment. Based on the 2 facts presented above, punishing Blitzchung for the statement he made on the official Blizzard stream is justified. But we still haven't proved whether or not punishing Blitzchung shows bias. For that, we need one more fact. Fact 3. A party such as a company or organization shows bias only by showing preferential treatment toward one side of a conflict over another. For example, if a phone company provides funding to an organization against gay marriage, but provides no funding to an organization that supports gay marriage, that shows bias against gay marriage on behalf of said phone company. In regards to the conflict at hand, that would mean Blizzard showing preferential treatment towards someone who spoke out in favor of China over someone who spoke out in favor of Hong Kong. Fortunately, there have been no players speaking out in favor of China on the official Blizzard streams. If there were, and Blizzard did not issue them a punishment, that would be showing bias. That would prove undeniably that Blizzard supports China against Hong Kong. But we do not have this data, so we cannot logically assume that Blizzard is biased on this issue. The only information we have is that Blizzard punished Blitzchung for speaking out in support of Hong Kong. This act of punishing him is an act of a neutral party, not a biased one. If they had not issued a punishment, that would be showing bias in favor of Hong Kong. While you may personally think that this is the right thing to do, remember that Blizzard wants to remain neutral on the issue. They are also perfectly justified in wanting to do so, considering that they are a gaming company and have no obligation to take any political stance at all. Plus, if they allow it to go unpunished, they risk more players using their streams as political outlets, not just in the Hong Kong conflict, but any conflict at all. This would damage the quality of their stream, regardless of which conflicts are being spoken on or which side was being spoken for. Blizzard had to punish Blitzchung to set a precedent, not a precedent against speaking out against China, but a precedent against political discussion on their streams in general. So, the argument that Blizzard's punishment of Blitzchung shows bias against the liberation of Hong Kong is invalid. The next argument that I want to address is the argument that Blizzard has allowed certain political statements on their stream which have had the potential to offend some group of people, and therefore by punishing Blitzchung, they show bias in this current situation. This argument is utterly useless. Let's use the example that many people bring up, the Overwatch League's Pride Day. On Pride Day, many people expressed their opinions on LGBT issues and showed support for the LGBT community on the official Overwatch League stream. Overwatch, by the way, is another game developed by Blizzard Entertainment. There are two problems with comparing Pride Day to Blitzchung's statement. First and foremost, Pride Day was a Blizzard-sanctioned event. That means that, by definition, Blizzard is okay with their stream being used to show support for the LGBT community. Remember that the rule cited against Blitzchung stated that punishment is applicable at Blizzard's sole discretion. If Blizzard says they are okay with it, they obviously aren't going to punish anyone for it. And the second reason Pride Day is not comparable to Blitzchung's statement is that they address two completely separate issues. By sanctioning Pride Day, Blizzard is undeniably expressing their support and bias toward the LGBT community. This is something that they have chosen to do, and they are perfectly justified in doing so. Blizzard is not interested in remaining neutral on LGBT issues, and that is their choice alone to make. Blizzard is, however, interested in remaining neutral on the issue of the Hong Kong protests. As I stated earlier, if Blizzard had not punished Blitzchung, that would be showing bias toward Hong Kong. Since they want to remain neutral on this specific issue, they had to issue a punishment. If Blitzchung had instead said, "Gay people are awesome," it's perfectly plausible that Blizzard may not have taken action against him. But he did not say that. He made a statement on an issue that Blizzard want to remain neutral on, so he was punished. We also have to take into account the delivery of the statement. Blitzchung donned a protester-style mask and yelled into the camera. The casters ducked under the table as he did so. This was clearly meant to be a grand statement which would catch people's attention, not something said nonchalantly in banter. And I don't blame Blitzchung for making this statement either. I completely understand that he wants to speak out and spread the word about the struggle of his people, and the Grandmasters tournament was definitely one of the biggest stages for him to do so. But he used Blizzard's stream and broke their rules, resulting in punishment, a consequence he knew was possible before making the statement. So, due to the specific topic which was addressed and the way it was delivered, Blitzchung's statement is incomparable to any other statement made on any Blizzard stream. Therefore, the argument that Blizzard's punishment of Blitzchung for his statement, while not punishing other political statements, shows bias against the liberation of Hong Kong is invalid. The next event that would further the Blizzard Hong Kong controversy was a statement made by Hearthstone's official Weibo account. Weibo, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, is basically like Twitter in China, from my understanding. Anyway, the statement translates to, "We are very angered and disappointed at what happened at the event and do not condone it in any way. We also highly object to the spreading of personal political beliefs in this manner. We will always respect and defend the pride of our country." From this statement, a new argument rose up in the community. This argument was that by apologizing to the Chinese government for what happened on stream, Blizzard is showing bias toward China and against the Hong Kong protests. This argument is, once again, very flawed. The key piece of information that people tend to miss here is the fact that the Hearthstone Weibo account is run by the Chinese internet tech company NetEase and not directly run by Blizzard. This adds a ton of context as to the wording used in the post, considering it was written by Chinese citizens. We will always respect and defend the pride of our country. Clearly this is not written by anyone at Blizzard headquarters in California, since China would not be their country. Perhaps the employees of NetEase will always defend the pride of China, but this statement says nothing about the employees at Blizzard from all other countries around the world. It is perfectly reasonable to expect Chinese citizens to say they will defend the pride of China, since that is the country they live in, and Blizzard of America has not made any sort of statement saying that they will defend the pride of China. And to address those who may say Blizzard should have control of their Chinese accounts, that unfortunately is not as simple as one might think. Chinese regulations on, well, almost everything, are very strict, and NetEase has full control over Hearthstone within Chinese borders. Blizzard of America is powerless when it comes to what is posted on the Play Hearthstone Weibo account. That being said, even if we assume that Blizzard agrees with the apologetic sentiment of the rest of the post, Blizzard apologizing to China because of the statement made by Blitzchung is perfectly justified. Remember, since we have no concrete evidence as to the contrary, Blizzard is still considered to be remaining neutral in regards to the Hong Kong conflict. Any neutral party whose media outlet is used to make a statement in direct support of one side of a conflict would naturally want to apologize to anyone they may have offended. The company does not want the views of that outspoken player to be applied to the company itself. The fact that their stream was the outlet which allowed that outspoken player to make that statement which offended some group of people is, in itself, grounds for issuing an apology to that said group of people. Blizzard does not want to take either side in the conflict, so it only makes sense for them to apologize to any offended party when a statement like this is made on their stream. To further drive this point home, imagine for a moment that you yourself run a stream with thousands of viewers. You have made the decision to keep your stream strictly about gaming and strictly politically neutral, and therefore instated a rule against anyone making any political statements on your stream. Some player comes along, signs the contract agreeing to the rule, and then goes on stream wearing a hat with the red elephant of the Republican Party on it. The elephant has a blue X over it, and the player shouts in an interview, "Screw Republicans, they're all racist." You may very well personally agree with this sentiment, or at the very least you may be inclined against the Republican Party for whatever reason. But that player broke your rules. That player used your stream to make a political statement, invalidating the political neutrality that you wish to maintain. Acting in the best interests of your stream, you would be forced to issue a penalty onto the outspoken player. You would most likely also feel obliged to apologize to the Republican Party, stating that your stream in no way condones the actions of the player. If you didn't, Republican viewers may stop watching your stream. Perhaps you would personally be okay with that, but being okay with that inherently makes you and your stream biased. Blizzard Entertainment want to remain neutral, not biased. Blizzard wants to bring the entire world together through awesome entertainment. Blizzard does not want to alienate any viewers, including those who live in and support China. If you disagree with this inclusion, that is perfectly fine. But know that it does not, in any way, show a legitimate bias on Blizzard's behalf. Including everyone, by definition, is an unbiased act. Apologizing to those who may have been offended or felt left out of said inclusion is the act of a neutral party that wishes to maintain the inclusion of everyone. If a statement was made on Blizzard's stream against the protesters in Hong Kong, saying that they should remain under Chinese control forever, we can expect they would issue an apology to them as well. Not apologizing to either of the parties would show bias. Since nobody has spoken out against Hong Kong on any Blizzard streams, we have no way of knowing how they would react. Assuming that they would not apologize is unjustified given the information we currently have. As far as the evidence goes, Blizzard is a neutral party in regards to the Hong Kong conflict and would apologize to either side should their stream be used to make a statement against that side. Therefore, the argument that Blizzard's apology to China shows bias against the liberation of Hong Kong is invalid. Another thing that people love to bring up is that China owns a 10% stake in Blizzard's company and that they make millions of dollars a year from business in China, and therefore this means Blizzard is biased toward China against Hong Kong. This is once again a fundamentally flawed argument. Just because a company receives money from a certain source or is owned in part by a certain party does not mean that they have to agree with the ideals of that party. I could take $3 million from China right now as a gift. As long as I don't spend it on oppressing people in Hong Kong, I show no bias against the protests. I simply am $3 million richer. If China paid me an annual salary, but I still just went about my normal life, I still have not shown any bias for or against Hong Kong. If China issues me an ultimatum saying I must show support for them against Hong Kong or I will not receive my salary, and I do so, then I am showing bias. I would show bias through my actions, for example posting something here on my channel saying Hong Kong sucks. But just receiving money from China does not inherently make me biased against Hong Kong. As far as we know, Blizzard has not received any sort of ultimatum from the Chinese government forcing them to show support for their cause. If they had, Blizzard would have either made their support for China abundantly clear or refused to do so, resulting in the banning of Blizzard games in China. Since neither of these has occurred, it is unreasonable to believe that any ultimatum was issued. Of course, it is possible that there was an ultimatum issued and Blizzard is just doing a very good job at hiding it, But with no prior history of such a conspiracy, nor actions taken showing any legitimate bias, this is also unreasonable to assume. Not to mention the fact that Blizzard takes millions of dollars from business in Hong Kong every year as well. If simply making money from business within an area makes a company biased towards the views of that area, then Blizzard would be biased toward both China and Hong Kong. This is not physically possible, so the argument is even more flawed. As far as China owning 10% of the company, this still means nothing without action. Blizzard can only show bias through its actions as a company. It does not matter who owns the company, as long as their actions do not show legitimate bias, the company cannot be considered biased. If you personally wish to boycott anything that is even partially owned by China, that is your choice to make. But the argument that Blizzard making money from Chinese markets or being partially owned by Chinese investment shows bias against the liberation of Hong Kong is invalid. Following the backlash from the community in regards to the harsh punishment of Blitzchung, Blizzard reduced the ban on the player to 6 months and reimbursed the cash winnings from the tournament. This shows that Blizzard is still trying to figure out how to gauge their punishments in these sort of situations. They have never experienced something like this magnitude before, and pretty much no other organization has either. There is no precedent for them to base their decision off of, but Blizzard listened to the community and realized that they had been too heavy-handed, reducing the punishment. It can only be assumed that they will use this incident as a baseline for any future ordeals regarding political statement on their platforms. And that is exactly what happened more recently when 3 college Hearthstone players were banned for 6 months after holding up a sign on an official stream which read, "Free Hong Kong, boycott Blizz." Blizzard is making it clear that no political statements will be tolerated on stream and go without punishment. Not to mention the sign was literally telling people to boycott the company which was running the stream. Even if no politics had been involved, I would still have expected some form of punishment for the 3 students. But the fact that they had added "Free Hong Kong" made their actions equivalent to Blitzchung's, and therefore they received the same consequence. The rule prohibiting political speech on stream still stands, and by punishing everyone who breaks the rule, Blizzard is doing a great job of not showing bias. If they had ignored this sign, that would be showing bias specifically against Blitzchung. But they took action, maintaining their neutrality. Remember that the punishments are still at the sole discretion of Blizzard. Of course, they will do their best to make everything fair based on the severity of the offense, but these things are often difficult to gauge. A 6-month ban seems pretty minor to me in the long run, considering the headache that this controversy has caused for Blizzard. A headache that is completely undeserved, since Blizzard has done everything they can to remain neutral and fair in their actions. Perhaps you disagree and think the 6-month bans are not proper punishments for the offense, but that is a completely separate issue. The argument at hand is whether or not Blizzard has shown bias through their issuing of the punishments. Since no outbursts have been made on stream in support of China, we have absolutely no legitimate proof that Blizzard is biased in either direction in regards to the conflict, and we definitely have no proof that Blizzard Entertainment is against the liberation of Hong Kong. As I was writing this script, I discovered that today, US Congressmen Ron Wyden and Marco Rubio signed a bipartisan letter addressed to Bobby Kotick, CEO of Activision Blizzard, addressing the recent punishment of Blitzchung. In the letter, the congressmen state, "We write this to express our deep concern about Activision Blizzard's decision to make Blitzchung forfeit prize money and ban him from participating in tournaments for a year after he voiced support for pro-democracy protests in Hong Kong. This decision is particularly concerning in light of the Chinese government's growing appetite for pressuring American businesses to help stifle free speech." I want to make a few things clear about this letter in anticipation of people inevitably using it to fuel their resentment of Blizzard. First off, the letter shows a certain level of ignorance on the issue, considering they still cite the 1-year ban and revoked prize money, which was reduced days ago. Regardless though, with this statement, the 2 congressmen are not claiming that Blizzard showed bias through their punishment of Blitzchung. They are expressing concern that the Chinese government's growing appetite for pressuring American businesses to help stifle free speech is playing a role in Blizzard's rules against political speech on their streams. While I sort of disagree in light of my earlier arguments about why Blizzard would state such a rule, this is a perfectly viable concern. Anyone is entitled to be concerned about whatever they like. You cannot tell someone that they are wrong to be concerned about something, regardless of how ridiculous you may think their concern is. But they are not stating that it is a fact that China pressured Blizzard to stifle free speech, whether directly or indirectly. The letter does not make any claims about Blizzard's inherent bias or specific sentiment with regards to the Hong Kong protests at all. I think it would be nonsensical to not be at least a little concerned about the possibility that China in some way influenced or influences Blizzard's policy against political speech on their platforms. I would be lying if I said there wasn't an inkling of concern in my head. I do not dismiss the possibility of China even being behind the punishment of Blitzchung altogether. However, given the evidence, or lack thereof, that we currently have, this is far from the most probable reality. The most probable reality, and the only one that can legitimately be accepted as fact based on the innocent until proven guilty principle, is that Blizzard is simply trying to remain neutral on this matter. This is especially true with the existence of the statement from Blizzard President J. Allen Brack made days before today when this letter was sent, stating that the specific views expressed by Blitzchung were not a factor in the decision made. I want to be clear, our relationships in China had no influence on our decision. This means that the punishment of Blitzchung was not based on the fact that he spoke out in favor of democracy against China or in support of Hong Kong. It was simply because he spoke on an issue that Blizzard does not want any part of. The statement also means that China did not influence Blizzard's decision in any way with regards to Blitzchung's punishment. It is, of course, up to anyone's discretion whether or not they want to believe Brack's words. But it seems ignorant to assume Brack is directly lying to the public when there is no hard evidence to support a reasoning behind such a lie. Lying would only make Blizzard's predicament even worse in the end. Of course, I understand that I could be wrong here, he could have been lying. But I have many reasons to respect this man and no concrete reason not to. Anyone who believes there is a conspiracy here is on the same level as any other conspiracy theorist, people who make bold claims and assign false motives without hard evidence. That isn't the type of person I want to be, especially not at the cost of playing the games that I have grown to love and built a community around. So, to wrap up my arguments, boycotting Blizzard because you believe they are biased against the liberation of Hong Kong is simply not valid. If you think this, you are ignorant to the way that bias is shown. Bias is shown through preferential treatment of one side of a conflict over the other. We as a community have shown bias against Blizzard by illegitimately assuming they harbor some implicit bias against Hong Kong. We have shown that the outspoken majority of the community is in favor of the liberation of Hong Kong by acting out when we think a company is showing bias in the other direction. But once we realize that we are wrong about Blizzard, that we are letting our own internal biases cloud our judgment, we will realize that we are the ones at fault. We made Blizzard into the monster that we perceive it as today, simply by forcing unwanted and unjustified bias upon the company. This needs to stop. I urge you to truly consider the arguments I have presented here and reconsider your biases against Blizzard Entertainment. If you still want to boycott their games, that is your choice to make. But I couldn't sit back and let this go on without at least expressing my own thoughts on the matter and defending a company that I care about. And there you have it. Those are my arguments regarding the Blizzard Hong Kong controversy. Thanks so much for watching all the way to the end. Again, feel free to discuss in the comments below. Let me know if I missed any information or give your opinion, positive or negative, on my arguments. If you do comment, include the word banana to let me know for sure that you watched all the way through. If you think I'm a scumbag, then go ahead and drop a dislike, but if not, please do leave a like so that I at least know not everybody in the community hates me. I haven't uploaded here in quite a long time, but I'm planning to get back into the swing of things very soon with some brand new ideas, and I'll also be keeping up with this whole controversy and uploading more videos on it if need be, so subscribe if you're interested in any of that. Anyway, thanks again for listening, that's all I've got for now, so until we meet again, later people.